Dara's red heels hit the marble floor before anyone saw her coming. The lobby went quiet first. Then the elevator. By the time she stepped onto the 32nd floor of Jang Holdings, 3 assistants had already turned their heads, and a security guard had forgotten his job entirely. The dress was not inappropriate. It was not theatrical. It was simply red, fitted, and worn on the wrong woman in the wrong building on the wrong morning, and somehow, all of that was exactly right. She was not trying to start anything. She never was. That was the thing about Dara Osei that nobody in this building could ever fully compute. She arrived early. She filed everything correctly. She remembered every appointment, every allergy, every preference of every executive on the floor. And she did it all without ever once asking to be seen. The red dress was for her mother's birthday dinner after work. She had planned to change back into the navy blazer hanging in her locker before the end of the day. She never got the chance. Kang Ji-won saw her from the glass corridor that ran along the east wall of the floor, the one with the panoramic view that he had specifically designed so he could monitor the entire office without appearing to. He had been on a call with the Shanghai branch when she walked past. He finished the call 12 seconds later, mid-sentence, with no explanation. He was not a man who lost focus. In 22 years of building an empire stitched together from fear and precision and the kind of silence that made powerful men nervous, Ji-won had never once let anything personal interrupt business. His lieutenants called him Hyukbyum behind his back, Black Tiger, not because of his temper, which was cold and not hot, but because of how he moved, quietly, decisively, and always in the direction of what he wanted. He wanted to cancel his 9 o'clock. His assistant, Son, was already at his door when he turned. "Cancel the morning," Ji-won said. Son blinked. "Sir, Chairman Park is flying in from. Reschedule him." Son opened his mouth, thought better of it, and nodded. Dara was at her desk, pulling up the day's brief, when she heard the door to his corridor open. She didn't look up immediately. She had learned early in this job that the worst thing a secretary could do was look startled. Startled meant you were paying attention to the wrong things. She finished the line she was reading, set her stylus down, and looked up. Ji-won was standing 6 feet away with his hands in his pockets, looking at her the way she imagined you looked at a fire you had not expected to find burning inside your own house. "Good morning," she said. "You're wearing red," he said. "I'm aware. It's going to be a problem." She tilted her head. In the 8 months she had worked for him, Ji-won had never once commented on her appearance. He had praised her efficiency 3 times. He had corrected her twice. He had never said anything that wasn't directly related to a task. "I'll keep my blazer on during client meetings if..." "That's not what I mean." He pulled a chair from the neighboring desk, not her desk, but close, and sat down facing her, which was an extraordinary thing for a man like him to do, and which told her immediately that this conversation was not going to be brief or comfortable. "How long have you worked here?" 8 months and 11 days. "And in that time, has anyone here ever made you feel unsafe?" The question landed differently than she expected. She studied his face, which gave her almost nothing. "No," she said carefully. "Why?" He reached into the interior pocket of his jacket and set a folded photograph on her desk. She looked at it without picking it up. It was a photograph of her, taken from a distance, clearly without her knowledge. She was outside the building, the one 3 blocks east where she bought lunch every Thursday. She was laughing at something on her phone. She was wearing her gray coat. It was clearly taken weeks ago because she remembered that coat, remembered that day, remembered stopping for jollof rice from the cart on the corner because she had been craving it since Monday. She looked up at him. "There are 11 more," he said. "Different days. Different distances. Someone has been watching you for at least a month." The air in the room changed. She felt it before she processed it, the way the body understands danger slightly before the mind catches up. "Who?" "His name is Cho Byung-soo." Ji-won's voice was level. It was the levelness of a man who had already decided what he was going to do and was simply informing the relevant party. He was a crime lord. Past tense, because I took everything from him 2 years ago. His organization, his territory, his reputation. I left him alive because killing him would have made him interesting. I wanted him forgotten. He paused. He is not forgotten. Dara looked at the photograph again. He's using me to get to you. He's planning to take you to get to me. The silence between those two sentences was enormous. Why would taking me get to you? She asked it plainly because she needed the answer plainly. I'm your secretary. I file your briefs and manage your calendar. I'm replaceable. Something moved across Ji-won's face. It was quick, and it was almost nothing, and she almost missed it. You're not replaceable, he said. And then, before she could decide what to do with that, and Cho knows I don't let things that belong to me get touched. Dara felt the heat of that word before she felt the offense of it. I don't belong to you. I know that. He met her eyes. Cho doesn't. If you are already feeling the tension, you're exactly where this story needs you. Stay with it. What happens next is the part nobody prepares you for. She should have asked to go home. She understood that later. The sensible response to being shown surveillance photos of yourself and told that a crime lord was planning to abduct you was to leave the building, contact the authorities, and put as much distance as possible between yourself and the world that had apparently decided to include you. Instead, she said, "What do you need me to do?" Ji-won looked at her for a long moment. "Nothing," he said. "I need you to stay in this building today. Don't go to the lobby. Don't take calls from numbers you don't recognize. Son will bring you lunch. That's it. That's it. And what are you going to do? Handle it." That's not an answer. His jaw shifted. It's the only answer I have for you. She wanted to push harder. She was, by nature and by training, a woman who pushed until she had the full picture. But something in the way he said it, not dismissive, not arrogant, but careful, the way you are careful with something you don't want to break, made her stop. "Okay," she said. He stood, straightened his jacket, walked 2 steps and then stopped without turning around. "The dress," he said quietly. "It suits you." He was gone before she could respond. The morning moved strangely after that. She worked. She answered emails, rescheduled Chairman Park for Thursday, prepared 3 briefings that Ji-won had not asked for but would need by end of week. She was good at anticipating what he needed. She had always been good at that, even before she understood that it was a skill and not just a reflex. Her mother called it reading rooms. Her grandmother called it surviving them. At 12:30, Son appeared with a box from a restaurant she had never been to, containing a meal she had never ordered but which turned out to be, impossibly, exactly what she would have chosen herself. She stared at it for a moment. She ate. At 2:15, she heard raised voices from the east corridor. Not shouting exactly, but the particular pressure of men trying to keep their voices controlled while saying things that wanted to be louder. She recognized Ji-won's voice, low and precise. The other voice she didn't know. 20 minutes later, the voices stopped. At 3 o'clock, Ji-won appeared at her desk again. He looked the same as he always looked, which meant he looked immaculate and unreadable and slightly like a man who had already won a war that other people didn't know had started. He set a phone on her desk. It was not her phone. "New number," he said. "Your contacts have been transferred. Use this for the rest of the week." Ji-won. She used his name deliberately, without the honorific, for the first time in 8 months. She watched him register it. What happened in that corridor? A conversation. With who? Someone who wanted information about your schedule. He won't be asking again. She absorbed that. Is he? He's fine, Ji-won said. Embarrassed, but fine. I don't make messes inside my own building. That's reassuring, she said, with a flatness that surprised even herself. The corner of his mouth moved. It was not quite a smile. She had never seen him smile, not genuinely. She had seen him perform one twice in client meetings. This was different. This was involuntary. It lasted approximately 1 second, and then it was gone, and he looked away like he was annoyed at himself, which she found, in spite of everything, unexpectedly endearing. Go back to work, he said. I never stopped, she said. This is the moment in the story where most people would tell you things settled down. They would be wrong. Come closer. The night is where this story lives. At 6:45, when the floor had emptied and the cleaners hadn't yet arrived and the city outside had shifted from gold to gray, Ji-won came back. She was still at her desk. She had been planning to leave at 6, but had stayed to finish a report, and then stayed a little longer because she was, if she was honest with herself, slightly afraid of the lobby. He stood in the doorway of the main office for a moment, looking at her the way he had that morning, and she felt the day press in around both of them with all its weight. "You should have gone home," he said. "So should you." He walked to her desk and sat on the edge of it, not in the chair, on the desk itself, which was informal in a way that felt significant, and looked out at the city. She swiveled her chair to face him. Up close, in the low evening light, he looked different than he did in meetings. Not softer, exactly. More present. Like something in him had let go of whatever performance it spent the day maintaining. "How long have you known about Cho?" she asked. "Long enough. And you didn't warn me. I didn't know he'd moved on you until this week." He turned to look at her. "If I had known sooner, I would have." "What?" She tilted her head. "Warned me? Moved me to a safer building? Fired me so I'd be out of range?" "No," he said. "None of those things." "Then what?" He was quiet for a moment. The city made its sounds outside the glass. Somewhere on a lower floor, a phone rang and went unanswered. "I would have told you the truth sooner," he said. "About what you are to me." The room went very still. Dara looked at him. She was not naive. She had not spent 8 months in close orbit of this man without understanding certain things about him, that he was precise, that he was controlled, that he was capable of kindness only when he had decided it was strategic, that he had the kind of face that made women stupid and knew it, and had decided long ago not to use it carelessly. She had protected herself with those understandings. They had been sufficient. Until right now they had been completely sufficient. "Ji-won," she said carefully. "I'm not going to pretend I haven't noticed you," he said. "I've been noticing you since the 3rd week you worked here when you told me, without blinking, that my proposal for the Busan deal was structurally weak, and here was exactly why. Nobody talks to me like that. Everybody should talk to you like that." "They should," he agreed. "They don't." He looked at her like the gap between those two sentences was exactly what he meant. "You're not afraid of me. I don't have a reason to be afraid of you. Most people manufacture reasons. I'm not most people." Something in his expression shifted. It was subtle and it was complete. The way weather changes, you don't see it happening, only the result. He reached out and tucked a single lock behind her ear, and she went completely still, and his fingers brushed her jaw as he withdrew them, and it was such a small thing, such a restrained and deliberate thing, and it landed in her chest like a stone into deep water. "I know," he said quietly. She exhaled. "This is complicated. Everything I do is complicated. This is differently complicated." She looked at her hands, then back at him. "I work for you. You're the best person on this floor. That's not what I mean, and you know it." "I know what you mean." He was still watching her. "I know every argument against this. I've made them all. I've been making them for 8 months. And then you wore red today and Cho moved on you, and I sat in my office this morning after I left you, and I thought about all the arguments I've been making, and I thought." He stopped. Looked away. "I thought I'd been wasting time." Dara felt the full weight of who this man was in that moment, what he ran, what it cost, what it made him, and what it would cost anyone who stood beside him. She felt all of it clearly. She was not a woman who looked away from clear things. She also felt something else. Something that had been living in her chest for a longer time than she had allowed herself to acknowledge. Something quiet and inconvenient and stubborn, the way certain feelings are stubborn, the way they refuse the logic you build against them. "I need you to understand something," she said. "If I'm standing beside you, it's not because of the building or the cars or the fear you generate in a room. None of that moves me. I know. And if something from your world gets aimed at me because of where I'm standing, I won't disappear quietly. I won't make it easy. I'll be angry. I'll tell you exactly what you did wrong. I'd expect nothing less. And I need you to stop making decisions about my safety without telling me what's happening. The photos. That conversation in the corridor. All of it." "Agreed." He said it without hesitation. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, "Okay." He looked at her. Okay, Ji-won." She held his gaze. "Stop wasting time. He kissed her, and it was not tentative and it was not performative. It was the kiss of a man who had been making arguments against something for 8 months and had finally, completely, stopped. She felt the city outside, the lights coming on in the buildings across the skyline, the whole enormous, complicated machine of a world that was nothing like simple. She felt all of it. She kissed him back. They had approximately 4 hours before it all fell apart. She had not meant to stay as late as she did. But after everything, after the photographs and the corridor and the conversation in the low evening light, it felt unnatural to simply leave, and so she stayed. And they talked in the way that people talk when something large has shifted and both parties are still finding their footing on the new ground. He ordered food from a place nearby. They sat at his conference table, which she had sat at hundreds of times for briefings and never once for anything resembling a meal. And she told him about her mother's birthday dinner she had missed, and he was quiet for a moment, and then, without commentary, picked up his phone and had someone send a gift to the address she gave him. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I know. My mother is going to want to know who sent it. Tell her it was a colleague. She's going to assume I'm seeing someone." He looked at her. That would not be inaccurate. She felt warmth rise in her face, which was annoying. She was not a woman who got flustered. She considered herself resolutely unflusterable. Ji-won seemed to understand this and to find it quietly satisfying, which was additionally annoying. "You're smug," she told him. "I'm rarely pleased about anything," he said. "Allow me this. You have 48 hours of allowance and then I start charging interest." He laughed. It was short and surprised and genuine, and it changed his face entirely, and she catalogued it the way you catalog something you think you might want to come back to. At 9:42, his phone rang. He glanced at it and his face went back to the version she recognized, the controlled and unreadable version, and she understood immediately that the 4 hours of relative normality were over. He answered in Korean, fast and low, and she didn't catch all of it, but she caught enough. She caught Cho's name. She caught the word for building. She caught the word for now. He stood. "I need you to go to the car. Park SSI is waiting in the underground level. He'll take you." "What's happening?" "Cho is in the building." The cold came back immediately, the animal instinct that the body runs ahead of the brain. "How?" "Service elevator. He has 3 men." Ji-won was already moving toward the cabinet on the east wall, the one she had never seen him open. He got past the lobby because someone in the lobby stopped caring about their job. He said it flatly, the way you note a failure before you address its consequences. "Ji-won." She stood. "Look at me." He turned. His hand was on the cabinet door. Something in his eyes was very old and very tired and very decided all at once. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "What I do?" That still isn't an answer. "Dara." He said her name the way you say the name of something you're afraid to lose, not out loud, not even to yourself, but in the involuntary honest moment when the fear gets ahead of the control. "Please go to the car." She looked at him for one long second. Then she said, "You'd better come out of this conversation exactly the same way you went in." Something moved across his face. "That's the plan." "It better be more than a plan." She went to the door. She stopped. She turned around once more because she needed to, because some things demand a last look even when you expect to come back. He was watching her. He looked like a man who had made every decision of his life in service of a single direction and was only now, possibly for the first time, aware that the direction he was moving in was not the only one that mattered. "Ji-won," she said. "Go," he said. Gently. "I'll find you." She found Park SSI exactly where Ji-won had said, a man in his late 50s with a completely neutral expression who had clearly been waiting without particular anxiety, as though the thing he was waiting for was simply the next item on an ordinary list. He opened the door without speaking. She got in. The car did not move immediately. She sat in the dark of the underground garage and listened to the building above her and thought about all the ways a person constructs a life that keeps them at a safe distance from rooms like the one she had just come from. She thought about how she had constructed such a life. She thought about how efficiently she had dismantled it by staying late on a Thursday in a dress she had worn for someone else entirely. She did not regret it. That surprised her. Above, on the 32nd floor, Cho Byung-soo came through the stairwell door with his 3 men and found the floor empty and dark except for the conference room, which was lit, and in which a single figure sat at the head of the table, jacket off, sleeves rolled. The posture of a man who had been expecting this particular knock for a long time. "You sent everyone home," Cho said, in Korean, stepping into the light. "I didn't want them in the way," Ji-won said. Cho was a lean man with the kind of face that had once been handsome and was now something harder, worn into new geometry by years of loss and fury. He looked at Ji-won across the conference table. "You took everything from me. You built everything you had on foundations you borrowed without permission," Ji-won said. "I simply returned the materials to their rightful owners." He tilted his head. "You knew that. You were there. I had a life. You had a performance of one." Ji-won was quiet for a moment. "What did you think would happen, Byung-soo? You put men on my secretary. You came to my building. You thought this ends with you getting something back. I thought it ends with you knowing what loss feels like." Ji-won stood. The room changed in the way rooms change when someone in them stops performing patience. "I know what loss feels like," he said. "I have known since before you were a name worth knowing. And I will tell you something that you have not been intelligent enough to learn in all your years of planning this. The worst thing I could do to you is what I've already done. Making you irrelevant. Making you small. What you're doing right now, coming here, doing this, you're trying to make yourself large again. You're trying to make me respond to you the way I'd respond to a real threat." He paused. "You're not a real threat, Byung-soo. You're a grievance in a borrowed suit." Cho's jaw tightened. He said something to the man on his left. The man on his left was faster than he looked. Ji-won was faster than that. What happened on the 32nd floor in the next 11 minutes is not the part of the story that matters. The part that matters is what happened at 11:15, when Dara's new phone rang in the back of the car in the underground garage. "I found you," Ji-won said. She exhaled. "Same way you went in?" Largely. Largely. There's a cut. It's minor. That is not the definition of exactly the same. I'll accept that correction." He paused. "Are you all right?" "I'm in a car in a garage listening to a building," she said. "I've had better evenings. I'll make it up to you. You have 48 hours before interest starts." "I remember." And she could hear it again, that short, surprised quality, that involuntary thing. "Come back up." She looked out the window at the concrete and the fluorescent light and the ordinary, unremarkable architecture of a hidden place. "Are you sure the floor is clear?" "I'm sure." "And Cho?" A pause. "Handled." "Ji-won. He's alive. He's going to have a very bad week, and then he's going to have a very long time to reconsider his priorities. That's all I'll say." She nodded to herself. That was, she decided, sufficient. "I'm coming up," she said. "And when I get there, you're going to let me look at that cut." "It's minor." "I know it's minor. You're still going to let me look at it." Silence. "Then, all right." She told Park SSI she was going back up. He nodded with the same neutral expression, as though this too was simply the next item on the list. And she got out of the car and walked back to the elevator and pressed 32 and watched the numbers rise and thought about red dresses and surveillance photographs and conference room meals and a laugh she wanted to hear again and a city full of windows and all the complicated, irreversible ways a single ordinary morning could become something else entirely. The elevator opened. Ji-won was standing in the corridor, jacket over one arm, a small cut along his left cheekbone that was, as promised, minor, and an expression on his face that she did not have a category for yet but intended to learn. She walked toward him. "You're bleeding a little," she said. "I'm aware." "Told you." "You did." He looked at her. "Dara." "Ji-won. Thank you for coming back up." She looked at him in the low light of the corridor, in the building that had her surveillance photos somewhere in a cabinet and her fingerprints on a conference table and her professional history in a digital file and now, apparently, something much less categorizable. She thought about all the arguments against this. She thought about how she had made them. She thought about how entirely, stubbornly, persistently insufficient they were. "You said you'd find me," she said. "I figured the least I could do was make it easy." He smiled. A real one, the second she had ever seen, and longer this time, and she catalogued it in the place she was keeping the other one. The growing collection of involuntary honest things that belonged to a man who performed invulnerability for a living, but kept slipping, specifically with her, specifically in low light, specifically when the building had emptied and there was no one left to perform for. She reached up and touched the cut gently, assessing. He stayed still. I'm going to need something to clean this, she said. First aid kit, he said. East cabinet. The one with the different shelf, he said. She lowered her hand. Come on then. She walked toward the cabinet, and he followed, and the city went on existing outside the glass, and the 32nd floor rebuilt its silence around them, and somewhere below, in an underground garage, a man with a neutral face drove a car to wherever it needed to be, and that was the night that everything began, not ended, not resolved into something clean and finished, but began, complicated and real and entirely unwilling to be made smaller than it was. If this story got under your skin, if Ji-won and Dara are living in your chest right now the way they are in mine, you already know what to do. Subscribe. Not because an algorithm needs feeding, but because you chose a side tonight, and the people who choose to stay are the ones who find out what happens next. Drop in the comments. Were you Team Dara walking back into that building, or Team Ji-won standing in that corridor? Because that moment tells everything about the kind of love story you believe in. Like this if you think she should have made him wait longer. And stay close, because the next part of this story goes somewhere neither of them is prepared for, and neither are you.